And welcome to another episode of Devil Dash. I'm Wills Rice, joined here by Josh. And, we've been doing this. This is now our 11th episode. We've been waiting for football the entire time. And, hey, football came. It happened. And, Josh, it hurts. The way the game happened, it hurts. I mean, it's plain and simple. A lot of people didn't think ASU would be in this game, let alone up 13 late in the fourth quarter. We all know how it went down. I mean, just the fact that we were not only winning the game, but, heavily in control of that game for 98% of it is so heartbreaking. And, there's just so many raw emotions with this game. I'll let you start it off. Tell me what you feel, how this game went for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, every single person not every single person, but a lot of people underestimated us, including Vegas. They were way off, like we talked about for 3 weeks. But, man, this was just a letdown finish for the Sun Devils in a fantastic Pac-12 opener. I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off that screen. Both teams were turning over the ball a lot. So, I mean, that's good football, but not when a game that important is on the line. And, like Will said, we've been waiting 8 months for this, and it's a tough ending, but a lot to unpack.
I want to say this. We're going to get into the positives, a little bit later of, what ASU did right in this game. I mean, obviously they were up 13 points with, I think it was 2 minutes and 48 seconds to go or something like that before the onside kick happened. But, I said from the very beginning that if ASU loses this game, there's probably no shot they can win the Pac-12 South. And I don't think that anymore because I think we can beat Utah. I think we looked like a very solid team. A lot of the question marks that this team had got answered in a positive way. But this USC team was very, very beatable and very vulnerable. Keaton Slovis threw for almost 400 yards, but if I had to guess, I would say, probably 150 of those came in the fourth quarter. There were a lot of PIs in this game. Their running game wasn't all that great. We kind of seem to have Keaton Slovis in check. And I'm not saying USC is going to lose 2 more games the rest of the season and ASU is going to go undefeated, but ASU didn't play that well. I want to say that. ASU did not play. A lot of times when you beat a team that's better than you, you play like the perfect game, if you will. Jaden Daniels only threw the ball for 134 yards and only completed it 11 times. For someone that was one of the most accurate passers in the Pac-12 last year, going 11 for 23 for 134 yards and a touchdown, that's not going to happen again. And USC's defense didn't play all that well. I know Jaden Daniels had 111 rushing yards as well. But, a lot of things didn't go right for ASU. Obviously, the onside kick. And I really think ASU not only played better, but they are the better team. I truly do believe that.
Yeah, hold the brakes there. We gotta give Jaden a little slack. This is a new offense for him. We're not gonna see, probably him throwing the ball as much as he did last year. So I understand that aspect of it. And he did, like you said too, he did make up for, the missed passing yardage in rushing yards, which was very exciting to see. But yeah, man, this was just tough for the Sun Devils, tough for the defense. I agree. Jaden he needed to take more command in that game later on. There was a couple of drives where I feel like we just could have done a little better.
And yeah, I really want to reiterate though, like first game of the season, ASU looked substantially better than this USC team. And if you went into the game telling me that Keaton Slovis was going to throw the ball 55 times and only have 381 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, I would be thrilled with that. Keaton Slovis did not play that well. And, all week, the past few weeks, we've been saying that, Keaton Slovis doesn't have to win them this game, but Jaden Daniels has to go out and win them this game. I think Jaden did enough to go out and win them this game. We saw the dropped interception by Kyle Soley, the linebacker that was killer. I believe USC scored on that drive. The onside kick is just like, why don't you have more people on the hands team over there? I think there was 1 or 2 guys going after that ball. It's just so many questions that you don't normally see a lot of these things from a Herm Edwards team. The easy catches are usually made. The onside kicks are usually recovered. You don't see a lot of fumbles and stuff like that. It's just, ASU fumbled the ball 3 times this game. And one of them was a costly punt return, and ASU's defense stepped up and actually got a fumble on the goal line that drive. But ASU is just, it's one of the most frustrating schools to be a fan of. It really is. you don't have the caliber of, stature that if you're not playing USC, you're not going to be on that 9 a.m. game because you're in that game because of USC. They went out and showed the nation that they were better, at least in that game for 2 minutes that weren't of the game. They were better than USC. And it's just really disappointing to see that this team hasn't turned the corner. I wrote an article for Sports Pac-12 probably 2 weeks ago about how ASU football and basketball aren't on the rise anymore, but they're ready. They have arrived. They are here. And I just really think that this loss shows that we're not there, and it shows that we're not ready because these are games you need to win. You're not playing Oregon and, the MVP. It's not like Marcus Mariota just showed back up from his Heisman season and led some miraculous comeback. This is a sophomore Keaton Slovis that did not play that well. So it's just really, really disappointing.
I mean, I think this game shows that you said Jaden did enough. I kind of disagree with you on that point. I mean, Jaden did a lot. I mean, I think the biggest progressive step we can see from him in this game was on his ground game, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he made great decisions when to run upfield. He saw space. He made the most of it. And the defense did a great job keeping him in the game, while I think Jaden could have done a little more. I think he could have. And this just shows that maybe that game just wasn't his forte, but he really hasn't matured to that next level. I mean, I know Slovis threw probably 70% more passes than him, but that dude had almost 400 yards. So I mean, that's what you got to do to be in these close games.
So Slovis was actually one off doubling his passing. Daniels threw it 23 times to Slovis's 55. But we have a question from Jason Marks, one of our Dash Sports guys. You might have touched on this already. Did the conservative play calls late lose them the game, or was it more than that? You know what, Jason? It probably was the conservative play calls. The thing is, we've talked about this. If you don't watch ASU every game, you don't really, it's not something but Herm Edwards is the definition of a game manager. So, when you're up 13 points late in the game, Herm Edwards is not going to be passing for the first down. And that's something that USC knew, ASU knew it, and the fans knew it, that ball was going to be run. And, in the past, we've had a decent offensive line, and we had Eno Benjamin that, if it's a 3rd and 1 and you get stuffed at the line, odds are he's going to take that tackler after the contact for that extra 1 yard. And I think Herm figured out a lot about his team. I think he figured out who he can trust on offense. We saw Johnny Wilson did not play well, and that was someone that I had touted as probably, could be the best receiver over Darby. I think Herm Edwards figured out a lot, but to answer your question, I think it was a lot of things that just went USC's way. I mean, the conservative play calling is definitely a part of it. And I think, yes, it plays a big part of why we lost. But with Herm Edwards, it's kind of expected just to be the game manager and to try to win that game by getting first downs instead of putting it in the air. And, how often have we seen in college that you trust this quarterback and you get humbled real quick, remembering that your quarterback's 19 years old and he's a college kid and not, he's not playing in the NFL and getting paid $30 million a year to do this. So to answer your question, I think, yes, the conservative play calls did play a difference, but I don't really think that's why we lost because that's ASU Herm Edwards style football. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. Things just went well for USC near the very tail end of the game. I mean, can somebody in the chat give us a explanation for Brew McCoy's catch in the end zone? Yeah. I mean, that's a one in I'm sure that's a 1 in a million catch. You're gonna have people telling me otherwise in the comments on Twitter, but he got the deflected ball right in his hands, right in the breadbasket, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and it's just unfortunate timing for ASU, and the USC winning this game overshadows everything good that ASU did, which is something that we'll be looking to get into next.
Yeah, we're going to get into that next. I have one last thing to say kind of about the USC token of things. It's on our crossover show with the USC guys last week, I was talking to Nathan about, I don't think USC's anywhere close to a top 10 team. And he kind of didn't disagree with me, but he kind of scoffed at saying pump the brakes. We haven't seen them play yet. I think this is a huge, not loss for USC. Obviously, they want to win games. Everyone wants to win games, especially when they think they have a chance at the Rose Bowl this year. But this is a game that if they lose, Clay Helton he's on the hot seat. He's getting ready to get fired. And they're going to be coming after his head if they lose by 2 touchdowns on opening day to a less talented ASU team. I think this is a little bit of a Band-Aid for USC and Clay Helton. Wow, we won this game, when in all reality, his team was not ready to play. An onside kick went their way, a tipped touchdown pass in the end zone went their way, and they won by 1 point. If I'm USC, I am not comfortable with Clay Helton, and I am not comfortable for the rest of the season. That O-line held up okay, but ASU doesn't have a great pass rush. We talked about that coming in, that they were going to need to force turnovers and rush the passer. They didn't do that, and they still almost won. So if I'm USC, I really don't give Clay Helton the pass here because he was outcoached for really the entirety of this game. But we really want to talk about some of the things that went right for ASU.
There was a lot of good things.
We did touch on
so many good things.
There were so many good things, and I think from the start, ASU has a history of if they lose the turnover battle, and I don't have the numbers actually. Let's see if I'll keep talking while I'm looking them up, but usually if they lose the turnover battle, they lose the game, and it's not really even that close. I don't have the exact numbers, but they usually need to win the game by at least 2 turnovers if they're going to play a better team of more talent than them, if they're going to win the game. And they started off with, the muff punt that, we ended up getting the ball back. We had some key turnovers. We had a Keaton Slovis interception that was big, and we made some big plays in big time moments. And I know you and I talked about that, the big 3rd and 11s or the 4th and 1s on defense. And I think ASU really did a great job. I think they struggled to get off the field a little bit on 3rd down. But, overall, I think in the big plays and the big times of the game, obviously besides the last 2 minutes, they did well. What do you think?
Yeah, and, you have to remember throughout all of this, we did it all without Frank Darby, who is supposed to be a leader for the wide receivers. And, a lot of that offense, a lot of those offensive guys out there. Yeah. So, I really, this is a really tough loss, like we've just rambled on about, but this was a huge positive for us. Jaden Daniels and Rachaad White had 271 rushing yards on the ground all together combined, which is phenomenal. Touching on the door, knocking on 300. You have to appreciate that from these first-year backs and first game.
Absolutely. And I think it was really all started with Jaden. One of the differences we saw this game compared to last year is that they had a lot more designed runs for Jaden. Like last year, a lot of his running yards were, just kind of broken plays at the pocket, pocket collapse, and he would scramble out to the right and get, 7 to 10 yards. But this game, you could tell that, Herm Edwards and Zach Hill on offense were kind of saying, hey, we don't know what we have in a lot of these guys, but we're going to put the ball in our best players' hands. We're going to do what we can to put the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands, whether it's running the ball or whether it's throwing. And we saw the two new running backs, DeMonte Trayanum and Rachaad White, both have 12 carries each. And then right after them, Jaden Daniels had 11 carries for 111. He's averaging over 10 yards a carry, which is phenomenal. And anytime you can get that from your quarterback, it's going to be a lot of positives. That being said, he almost had exactly as many rushing yards as he did passing yards. And that's something that's not going to be a formula to win you games going forward. But let me ask you this as a positive. If I told you, obviously he got hurt, so it's a little bit different, that Frank Darby was going to have 1 catch for 2 yards, what do you think the final score of this game would be?
I think it'd be the same.
Obviously that is what happened. Our number 1 wide receiver, Frank Darby, had 1 reception for 2 yards because he got hurt very early in the game. But if you would have told me that, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 people that caught passes and 2 of them were on the team before but didn't really ever play. If you would have told me that our number 1 receiver, the only one that was a sure thing on offense besides Jaden Daniels, was going to have 1 catch for 2 yards, I would have told you ASU probably doesn't cover that spread and they lose by 14 to 21. So, I think there are a ton of positives that came out of this game because a lot of things didn't go right for ASU and they were still dominating this game. So it's just, like I said, it's such a disappointing loss. And if you go back and, ASU does win this game, I think there are so many positives that we can take that say, wow, Jaden did take that big step from last year in the running game, because I don't think this 11 for 23 is going to be consistent. He was known for his accuracy last year. So I think that's something that we can kind of write off. If it happens a few more times, especially during a 6-game season, something to worry about. But, really the only thing about this game was the score and the way they really choked the end of this game, because like we said, 98% of this game was full of positives until the last 2 minutes, which just, it seems like they drove their car off a cliff.
Yeah, you can expect Jaden Daniels, 11 for 23, 134. that's going to go up. I mean,
Yeah.
Frank Darby wasn't in the game. Bunkley Shelton, I'm pretty sure he had like 3 drops along with Wilson, a couple. I mean,
Wilson had a bunch.
that's like 100 yards right there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that'll definitely improve. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is just the running game for Jaden and these first-year freshmen, but also the defense, man. Antonio Pierce cooked up something mean back there. They really bottled up Keaton Slovis the first half of this game and even into the third quarter even.
Yeah, I mean, Keaton Slovis really was not on his best. And I wonder how much of that was, the time off they had, the 8 months of not playing football, and how much of that was this revamped ASU defense with a lot of new faces. But, Keaton Slovis was not the difference in this game. It really, the thing that changed the game was the onside kick, the Brew McCoy touchdown, which wouldn't happen again if you ran that play 100 more times. That bounce would not go that way. It just happened to that one time. But if you go back at the game log, ASU's last 3 possessions were a 4-yard, 4 plays, 19 yards, and a punt. And it only took a minute 36 off the clock. And USC used 2 of their timeouts. So USC scored a touchdown and then got the ball back. ASU then went turnover on downs and turnover on downs for their next 2 possessions. So if you're ASU here, it's so hard to hold your hat on, we played a solid game because USC did not win this game. ASU lost this game. And I think Herm has to take a lot of credit. And I think Jaden does too, because Jaden made plays the entire game. It really came down to it on these 2 turnover on downs at the end of the game. He didn't get it done. And that's simple as that. We needed a field goal at the end of the game. ASU, I believe, had minute and a half to 2 minutes, and we had a timeout. And I believe we crossed half field, but turned the ball over on downs. And when it comes down to that, you really need to look at the coach and the star player, and Jaden Daniels and Herm Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, after the game, Herm said, "Look, we have to grow from this as a team." I mean, they were winning the entire game and lost it within the last 3 minutes. So that is a choke. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
This was their moment. Everybody was ready. Everybody did their job up until the last 3 minutes of the game. I mean, you get a lucky touchdown, but you can't sit on that. You know what I mean? You have to forget about it for one, but you can't let that impact you and say, "Oh, that's blown coverage" or something like that. That's just that's not fair.
And someone I want to give a little shout out to, defensive players don't give a lot of love. We're talking about highlights of this game, positives. Let's go to Evan Fields, man. 17 tackles, 10 solo tackles, and a pass deflection. Like, come on, man. That's an incredible game. The next highest tackler for ASU was 10, and that's Merlin Robertson, who plays middle linebacker. He had 5 tackles, solo tackles, and 10 total. Our starting cornerback and safety had 10 solo tackles and 17 total tackles on the day. That's something that's going to have secondary or wide receivers and running backs scared that a safety with 17 tackles. That's a huge positive.
Well, that's what we talked about too last week. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and boast because a lot of the stuff we talked about did come true. But anyways, we needed those ASU defensive backs and safeties to step it up. I mean, this is their third 2.5-ish year together. They've been playing for a while.
Yep.
They should have good chemistry. Evan Fields, I mean, that just tells me that he's fitting right in at home, feeling good at ASU. I mean, that's a huge game where you need him. He's still one of our – he's a senior.
Yeah, he's a senior. Wow. So, I mean, it's something he's been here for a while actually. But, I mean, at one point in this game, probably halfway through the third quarter, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, man, has this ASU defense turned the corner? Like, we're playing an air raid offense right now, and they had 13 points for, 95% of that game. And Keaton Slovis did throw the ball 55 times, and he scored 2 touchdowns at the very end of the game. To be honest, I think ASU's defense was not fantastic because I'm not going to go that far when you lost the game, and especially in the fashion that you did lose it in. But, I thought ASU's defense was a huge positive coming out of this game. I thought they played, phenomenally for, majority of that game, and then just couldn't pull it together. But that is a very good offense with a lot of weapons and a lot of things you need to be wary of. So I'm curious to know, when we see a Cal next week or a Utah in the following week, a team that doesn't have that many weapons, what ASU defense shows up. Like, set a theme for your defense. Are you this hard-nosed defense with safeties that come up in the box like Evan Fields, or are you going to be one that, blitzes a lot and rushes the passer, which, we didn't see a whole lot of against USC. So, we're going to transition on. We were just talking about Cal. We talked about a lot of the positives. What are some of these positives do you think that ASU could take into next week against Cal? And, what can we expect from this ASU team?
Well, I think the biggest positive that we can take into next week, and that's if we even play against these guys, but like I said earlier, Jaden Daniels' decision-making in the pocket, knowing when to pass and when to run, whether that's a design run for him, that was what I was most impressed by in this past game. And I feel like that he will have the opportunity to make the biggest difference against a very tough Cal defensive team.
Yeah, and we saw Cal last year. They were fantastic. Their defense was smothering. Jaden really didn't have probably one of his worst games. Not his worst, because Utah wasn't even close his worst game. But, Jaden had not a great game against Cal, but the only reason ASU won that game was because quarterback Chase Garbers got hurt and Cal's backup QB was brutally bad. But, Cal's going to be an interesting game this week because ASU doesn't have any film on them. Their game got canceled last week due to COVID against Washington. And, that's something that could benefit Cal. We saw ASU. We talked about how ASU had a handful more practices than USC. And I said personally that I thought that was going to play a big deal into the game. And I think it did. USC was sloppy to open up that game. And I think you could see something similar here with Cal. But it's dangerous because Cal's going to have game film on this one game against USC, where ASU is going to have nothing on some of these new players for Cal. I don't know who that plays more into favor, whether it's ASU for getting a little of the rust off or Cal for, having that game film. But, someone that's played football and film on someone is not a good thing to have.
Yeah, this is a very scary matchup for the Sun Devils, especially just coming off a dramatic loss like they have. Maybe that is for the better. I don't know how they're feeling right now, but you can't expect the same Cal team from last year. Chase Garbers did get hurt, but this guy's a stud. He's no Jaden Daniels, but he's pretty darn close. And, yeah, they're going to be hungry. They lost last year, and I'm pretty sure Eno scored his third touchdown of the game with little under 2 minutes, something like that to go. So it was –
trying to pull it up right now.
It was very close. And, yeah, like you said, Jaden did not have a good game. Eno carried the load, so – yeah, we might have to put some weight on Chip's shoulders.
So this was a game that was actually Cal was ranked number 15 in the country coming into this game. They were 4-0, and Jaden Daniels threw 14 for 24 for 174 yards. But Eno Benjamin really carried the team, 29 carries, 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But something to note back here, I'm looking at the stats. The leading receiver for that game was Ricky Pearsall, 1 reception for 38 yards. And he's someone that's actually on the team now and someone that really doesn't get mentioned. But that just kind of shows how smothering Cal's defense was. Our leading receiver had 1 reception for 38 yards. So, it's definitely something Cal's defense likes ASU. I think this is a game that Chase Garbers could have circled, considering he got hurt in this game last year. And it was a game that, a lot of people were talking about Cal nationally last year until he got hurt, where, the backup, they lost everything with that backup. It really just wasn't even close to the same team. So, I think Cal's been ready for this game. I think, I really do think Garbers is going to have this game circled. And again, what ASU team is going to show up? Is it going to be that first half team that, really fought tooth and nail through, despite all the mistakes they were making? Or is it going to be this second half team that was like, wow, we just slapped USC in the mouth. We're good this year. We're going to win some games. And then next thing you know, the game's lost. And so what ASU team is going to show up? And that's really, it's a hard answer. It's really a hard answer to give you.
That is, because with a team that is just so hot and cold like this, with seems like almost every sport.
Every year too.
Every sport, every year. But I think we're going to go back and see a similar team to what we saw last week. Yeah. From a standpoint that the defense is going to show up. The defense is going to be ready. Just think about extra reps, like you said. That really made a difference in the USC game. Yeah. We were really throttling them the first half.
Yeah, and once we got out to that 27-13 or 20, sorry, what was it? 27-14? Yeah, 27-14. I couldn't remember. Once we got out to that lead, though, it really felt that we were in control, that, Slovis was confused back there in the pocket, that Jaden Daniels that really had control of the game, that we were running the ball well, and that USC really had no answer to slow us down, and that Herm game management was going to step in. And again, we talked about it. It's just a lot of things went right, a lot of things went wrong for ASU, and I really expect ASU to come out here and make a statement. I know Cal's a good team, and I'm not saying ASU is going to win by 3 or 4 touchdowns, but I really could see ASU coming out here and, first home game of the year, putting up, 14, maybe 15 to 18 point lead and victory. Sorry. And nothing against Cal. I really think I'm higher on Cal than a lot of people are. I just think it's the way ASU lost last week. And really, I think Jaden's hungry. I think he showed that last week with the way he ran the ball. He wasn't running to not get hit. He was running for extra yards and running to get first downs. I think ASU comes out and wins not big, but comfortably here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, ASU is the more ready team. I mean, from a physical and mental standpoint. I mean, they have their first game under their belt. Cal, their game got canceled. So, I mean, they're going to be hungry to play, but they're not going to be the same live ball team that, that ASU just played against, in terms of that. So
and it's going to be a different team too, because Cal is a team like ASU that likes to run the ball and likes to control the clock, where USC says, we're going to throw the ball every play. Good luck stopping us. And it's going to be a big switch up for ASU, but especially since, the first game was at 9 a.m. and now this game's at 8:30 p.m. So it's almost a 12-hour difference. That's a big difference for the players. Your game day routine, what time you wake up in the morning, what you're eating for, is it pregame breakfast or is it pregame dinner? It's just things that, they make differences, in your routine. A lot of players are superstitious in what they do. They like to wake up at the same time, they wear the same gloves or same cleats always. So I think ASU, I think I'm being a little superstitious here with a lot of the pregame rituals and, Cal not playing last week. But I just really question this ASU team. And I think this is a really big reality check for them going forward, because prove to me that, I was right when I said that you are not on the rise anymore. You have arrived. Prove to us that game was a fluke, and prove to us that you are the better team than USC. Put the pressure on USC. Go 5-1 this year. I'm challenging ASU to go 5-1, because if USC goes 5-1 and you lose off a head-to-head tiebreaker, you're going to be kicking yourself for losing that game. But you know what? Hats off to you for getting that 5-1 and really putting the pressure on USC and making it come down to the last game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, this Cal game is shaping up to be a Pac-12 after dark special. Supreme, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're always filled with terrible refereeing. It's always filled with terrible refereeing, bad turnovers, a muffed punt, something like that. And we get to see ASU right in the heart of it.
Yep. And deep down, you get to know that all those degenerate bettors are up at 11:30 slapping that live bet on.
Yeah, and on the East Coast, they're probably up at 2 a.m. watching the game. But I have the line right in front of me. It's ASU -3.5. Do they cover? Do they don't? Do they not?
And I don't know. You know what? Vegas was wrong last time. I don't think they mess up again. I go Cal +3.5.
You think Cal +3.5?
Yes.
Okay. If I was a betting man, I would take the adjusted line here, which is it's 3.